Soon it'll be the 20th anniversary of SNIX. That doesn't mean anything to anyone except me and my old friends, but that's going to change because I'm going to unleash SNIX to the world, one of the oldest Cinemassacre movies in existence. It was filmed on April 13th, 1993. How do I know that? Because the date was on the camcorder. Yeah, that happens. The plot is simple. An ancient warlock named SNIX comes back to take possession of people's bodies. Kind of like The Exorcist, but that's giving it too much credit. 3 years later, I made a sequel as a joke, and then it spun off into a whole series, the 6 SNIX flicks. It was the longest-running Cinemassacre series before The Nerd. So why have I held off for so long to post this vintage anthology of Cinemassacre history? Why have I left them in my closet collecting dust for so many years? Well, the reason is quite simple. They suck ass. But I think the time is right to make them available for those who are interested to see how I got my start. And they show how much I've improved in 20 years. I'm going to post the first one on April 13th, the anniversary, and then the rest of them the following Saturday mornings. And as a bonus, I dug up some old footage of myself talking about these movies, so each one will begin with a vintage introduction. You'll even notice how much better I got at talking to the camera. These movies are not for everybody. They have a very slow pace and are not up to speed for internet entertainment. Sometimes a slow pace can work to build suspense. You'll have to be the judge of that, whether it's effective at times or not at all. These movies were meant to be comedy horror, but the humor and creepiness don't mix too well, so the result is this weird, undecided tone. I think I did a much better job with the Mr. Bucket video. That shows how much I've learned on how to mix laughs with scares. With the pacing back then, I often allowed things to happen in real time. There's a scene where I call my friend to come over. You actually see him walk out of his house and then walk all the way down the street. There's no reason audiences need to see all that. There's a part where the mask of SNIX keeps appearing in my refrigerator and keeps opening the door. Again, and again, and again. I mean, look at that. Isn't that hilarious? It's like the door is opening all by itself. Isn't that amazing? No, nobody needs to see that. It lasts about a minute, but it feels like an eternity. Another thing that always slowed down the pace was exposition. Every other scene is always explaining what just happened as if the audiences couldn't figure it out on their own. Sometimes it was because the characters needed to know something that happened that they weren't there for. So the other character needs to fill them in, get them up to speed. That's fine, but somehow you got to find a way to do that without the audiences needing to hear it again. Parts that I felt were really unnecessary, I cut down. I generally try to keep my hands off from re-editing my old movies. I resisted any urge to improve them because if I were to do that, I might as well just remake the movie and do it better. I wanted these all to appear as is, just the way they were made, because that's the whole point, to see all the faults in them. So I only made simple cuts for pacing reasons. The original movies each were usually a half hour to 45 minutes long. For these new editions, they're more like 15 to 20 minutes each. They still retain the original feel of the movie and include all the key scenes. It's just shots that are trimmed here and there. Trust me, it's for your own good. I don't want to bore you to death. Look at this awesome composition. You know, it's funny how easy it is to underestimate the height of a human being. We rarely had a camera operator, so me and the other actor would always have to film each other. If we were both in the shot, it was just a guessing game if our heads were in frame or not. There was no LCD screen on the camcorder, so we couldn't even see what we were getting. Take this shot, for example. I put the camera down on a coffee table. That's right, I didn't even have a tripod back then. I used stacks of books, whatever I could find. Anyway, you can see the whole door in the shot, so I figured if you could see the whole door, you'll see the heads, right? Nope, not at all. Whenever it was a shot I was in, I usually set it up all by myself, but other times when I needed someone to hold the camera, I never knew exactly what I was going to get. Everybody always liked to zoom. I was guilty of it myself too. I don't know what it was, but for some reason, back then, nobody could keep their fingers off the zoom. It's addicting for some reason, like, whoa, look, I'm zooming. The cameras we used had a letterboxing feature. It doesn't really shoot in a wider ratio, it just adds a black strip to the top and bottom, but I always thought it looked cool because it was like a real movie. Well, that's great, except every time you turn the camera off, the letterboxing goes away. So you have to keep remembering to turn it back on. So here you have a movie where the ratio is constantly changing. As far as music goes, there wasn't many options. Back then I couldn't afford stock music, and I didn't have any musician friends. I was the only artist I knew. The earlier SNIX films have this really weird thing I did on a keyboard, and then when it gets to the later films, it's all video game music. So get ready to hear the entire soundtrack to my favorite game at that very moment in time. Something funny about these old home movies was whenever there was a phone scene, actually I have an old phone right here, you'd be trying to do your dialogue and you hear that dial tone going on, and it's really distracting. That's bad enough, but then it starts going and then if you would like to make a call, please hang up and dial again. Just shut the fuck up. So I'd always pull the plug out like this, and then I'd scotch tape it to the back. But what I didn't realize was that you can see the hole, and it looked ridiculous. One thing I appreciated about my old filmmaking days was that I accepted the unpredictable. If there's a chase scene and somebody trips, well, hey, it's a real trip. Leave it in. Why not? There is a fight scene where I'm in the SNIX mask and my weapon of choice is a bathroom plunger. Now the window is being held open by a ruler because it wouldn't stay open on its own. So anyway, we're doing the fight scene and we're struggling, and then my arm gets slammed against the window, the plunger goes flying outside, and this is the second floor, and somehow the ruler snapped and the window came right down on my arm, trapping my arm, and then my friend takes the opportunity to punch me in my nose. It's great, and you can hear me laughing inside the mask, but I didn't do another take because, you know, it's just something spontaneous and funny, so I left it in. I just let the movie make itself. My biggest obstacle was always finding actors. I was socially awkward, so I didn't have many friends who lived close by, except for my neighbors. At best, there would be maybe 6 of them that I could choose from, but it was just a roll of the dice which one I was going to get. I would never get them all at the same time. That would be impossible because everybody had different schedules, so I had to just wait whenever they were available. So basically, I just had to operate on their schedule, and that was always frustrating for me because I would have to film movies all by myself, and then whenever I wanted to get someone else in them, it was hard, especially when I started writing scripts and the films started getting more ambitious. Then it got harder to finish the movies, and it wasn't that people didn't want to be in them, but you would maybe get an hour one day and then an hour another day spaced out. So you'd have to maintain continuity because we would stop filming at a really inconvenient time. Then we'd have to pick up that scene later, and everybody would have to wear the same clothes for continuity. And believe it or not, that was harder done than said because people lost their clothes all the time. So whenever there was precious time to film, they were always rushed. And that's one of the reasons why these movies didn't come out the way I always hoped, because there wasn't time to do another take. There wasn't options. You had to shoot it as fast as you could and move on. The Rotten Corpse of SNIX was one where SNIX was actually in the movie physically. It wasn't just a possession. So I was smart to make a costume for SNIX so that way anybody could play him, and I did the voice. So in total, for that one short film, SNIX was played by 6 different people. The first SNIX movies were all shot in camera, meaning there was no editing, and as the series went on, I discovered new tricks to edit using 2 VCRs. By the last movie, I mastered it down to a science. See Cinemassacre 200 for more details on how that was done. For the most part, each SNIX sequel is better than the one before it, so there's a progression, and you physically see me grow up throughout the course of these movies. The last one, at the time I claimed was my best, but I'm not so sure. It's more like a random clip montage and is more like a nostalgic scrapbook for myself. It's funny to think that when I made the first sequel, SNIX The Return, my 15-year-old self was looking back at my 12-year-old self, feeling sentimental about the movie I made 3 years ago. That was back when 3 years actually felt like 3 years. Now, to me, 3 years feels like 3 minutes. Time flies faster than it used to. And you know what? That's kind of the way it goes for SNIX himself. The first movie is set 3 centuries after SNIX's death. The second movie is set 3 years after that. And from that point on, I made it a running joke. So then it goes 3 months, 3 days, 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 3 seconds. So SNIX's return always becomes more frequent. Coincidentally, that's the way life really feels. That the things you have to keep dealing with keep coming faster and faster, and you just can't keep up. In the movies, my character is always being haunted by SNIX and wants to be rid of him. In the same way, the series haunted me. They were like a burden. I wanted to get them done so I could move on to the next movies. I had fresh ideas that I wanted to pursue, but the SNIX series took longer than expected, and I remember this being really frustrating at the time. It was like a creative constipation, which is something I still feel often today. I had personal demons as well. I was very uncomfortable with myself at the time. I had very low self-esteem. I hated seeing myself on camera. I never considered myself an actor. I did it just because there was no one else. But these movies helped me come out of my shell. The last movie was completed around my 18th birthday. The character SNIX may have been a symbol of all my personal baggage I was leaving behind on my road to adulthood. It was a fresh new start. That's what these movies mean for me. Now the question is, what will they mean for the rest of the internet? And that's for you to decide. I hope at the very least they can get a few laughs and maybe a little bit of a cult following, and maybe someone might want to do a commentary on it riff track style. My younger self would be proud. So get ready to start your Saturday mornings with SNIX.